Since debuting in 1996, Polaris has sold over 600,000 Sportsman 500s, making it the best-selling ATV of all time. With enough power, stable predictable handling, and plush suspension, its performance proved to be timeless. In 2014, Polaris replaced the old 500's engine with the ProStar 570, originally designed to power the Razor 570 side-by-side, increasing the Sportsman's power by 22%. The new engine allowed the midsection to be slim 3 1/4 inches, improving ergonomics. Add in a number of other smaller updates, Polaris was now selling the base model Sportsman 570 for the 500's 1996 introductory price of $6,499. Based on its excellent performance and unrivaled price point, we declared the Sportsman 570, quote, a winner for riders and a model for the industry to follow. As a company seemingly focused exclusively on performance, we were surprised when Can-Am was the first to step up and challenge Polaris price point dominance. The L500 received a proven and recently updated Rotax 500 V-twin engine, housed in a slightly revised version of Can-Am's Generation 2 chassis. In our Outlander L 500 DPS first test, we declared it the 2015 ATV of the year. With an extremely attractive price point, industry-leading 5-year warranty, and seemingly little sacrifice in performance, the Outlander L 500 was clearly a contender for the Sportsman 570's crown as a price point leader. The Can-Am's arrival sets up a shootout that should result in more units sold than any other this year, the 2015 King of Value 4x4 ATV Shootout. This ATVOnDemand.com production is brought to you by Maxima Racing Oils, the official high-performance lubricant of the 2015 King of Value 4x4 ATV Shootout. Visit them online at MaximaUSA.com. Our shootout took place at Haspin Acres in Laurel, Indiana. Haspin's 750 acres feature trails ranging from fast and wide open to technical and rocky. There's even a sand section with a little short course we used for lap times. Over 4 days of intense testing, we encountered dry dirt, slick muddy trails, and even virgin snow. Our test riders included Joe Hunt, a novice-level ATV rider who stands 5'11" and weighs 185 pounds. Damon James uses ATVs for work and play. He's a Grizzly 700 owner who stands 6'3" and weighs 225 pounds. For our shootout, he was decked out in fly racing gear, including their new Maverick Dual Sport boots, featuring a shorter height and cleated sole, perfect for utility ATV riding. Also decked out in fly gear, Rob Ray is highly skilled on ATVs, vintage 3-wheelers, and dirt bikes. He stands 5'8" and weighs 210 pounds. To determine which ATV is king, our riders evaluated and rated them on many aspects of performance, using a 10-point scoring system. Each machine can earn up to 10 points based on rider ratings. They can each earn up to 2 additional bonus points by winning 4 special challenges worth a half point each. These special challenges include Initial Value, Drag Race, Woods Moto, and Best Utility. For our shootout, Polaris sent a 2015 Sportsman 570 EPS Polaris Pursuit Camo model, while Can-Am sent a 2015 Outlander L 500 DPS. Each manufacturer offers 3 comparable models, one without power steering, one with power steering, and a power steering equipped camouflage version. For direct comparison, the $7,499 Sportsman 570 EPS non-camouflaged edition enjoys the benefit of electronic power steering and engine braking for its $900 price increase. For the $7,899 Outlander L 500 DPS, the $900 price increase gets you power steering, cast aluminum wheels, and an upgrade in its drivetrain from Can-Am's auto-locking Visco-Lock front differential to the faster engaging Visco-Lock QE system. No matter which model you choose, Can-Am covers the Outlander L with an industry-leading 5-year warranty. Our Polaris dealer quoted us $950 to purchase a 5-year warranty for the Sportsman. While the Polaris models retail for $400 less, by the time you add a $950 5-year warranty, they'll set you back $550 more than a comparable Can-Am. The warranty alone was enough for all of our test riders to declare the Can-Am the winner in initial value. As we dig into engine performance, here's a quick tip on how to make your ATV's engine live longer.
To help ensure a long, reliable engine life, changing your ATV's oil regularly is essential. Both manufacturers in our shootout recommend using a high-quality, full synthetic motor oil in their machines. Sold in powersports dealerships worldwide, Maxima offers a full line of high-performance synthetic, non-synthetic, and semi-synthetic motor oils. Maxima's Pro Plus full synthetic oil offers excellent performance and protection at a reasonable price. Its full ester blend reduces friction and engine temperatures for improved reliability and fuel economy, while its balanced additive system minimizes engine deposits while protecting critical engine components. We've used Maxima's Pro Plus oil in our sport and utility test machines and think you'll be as impressed with its performance and value as we are. No matter what you ride, Maxima has the right oil for your application. Not sure which Maxima oil is right for you? Log on to MaximaUSA.com or pay a visit to your local powersports dealer for more info.
The 567cc fuel-injected ProStar 570 engine powering the Sportsman was originally developed a few years back to power the 283-pound heavier Razor 570 side-by-side and its 2 occupants. It features a 4-valve double overhead cam design, which puts out 43.7 horsepower, according to the California Air Research Bureau. The Outlander's fuel-injected 499.6cc Rotax V-twin engine features 4 valves and single overhead cams per cylinder. It was most recently updated in 2013 and produces 45.6 horsepower according to CARB. That's the same horsepower CARB lists for Yamaha's Grizzly 700. Both the 500 and 570 possess more horsepower than any other machine in their class, regardless of retail price. Each engine is equipped with a fully automatic transmission with high and low forward ranges, plus neutral reverse and park, and engine braking comes standard on both. Each of these machines is very effective in its own way, and which one is right for you may come down to how you ride and your intended use. The riders were split, with Joe scoring the Polaris higher, and in the end, the category was very competitive, with the Sportsman giving up just 0.2 of a point to the Can-Am.
The two bikes have very different power curves. Where the Sportsman pulls like a hammer out of the hole, it flattens out before the Can-Am.
As soon as I pushed on the throttle, it was responsive. I got a lot of low-end torque, mid-range, shot right through that. Once it got to its top end, that's all it had.
The Sportsman 570 has great low-end power. The transmission engages very quickly. I would just have more fun on it if it had a little more top-end power. The transmission seems to be more ideal for utility use with its ultra-low range. It accelerates good up to 15 miles an hour, but it tops out faster than the Can-Am.
As far as the engine braking goes, it was really sudden. Really great for if you're towing or if you're going down a hill.
The engine braking works great for towing, but has a little bit more power than I would like for normal trail use.
Despite enjoying a 68cc advantage and scoring higher in low-end power, engine braking, and overall rideability, the Sportsman 570 took a very close second place. With its broader, more thrilling-to-ride power band and a transmission that was viewed more effective for all-around riding, Damon and Rob preferred the engine performance of the Can-Am.
The Can-Am is really slow to start on the power. Low end is really slow, but once mid hits, it's really strong on the mid, and where it really excels is the top end.
On the low end, however, there wasn't a whole lot there. Mid-range, it really picked up, and it carried that all the way up through the high range. Out of the two bikes, the Can-Am is probably, well, no, it is the fastest bike. I own a Grizzly 700, and this bike surprised me.
The transmission on the Can-Am was responsive. It actually had a higher top speed in low range, which made it more versatile out on the trail, and its engine braking was smoother and less abrupt.
The transmission on the Can-Am was great. It was, whether I was in high, low, four-wheel drive, it was very responsive. Engine braking on the Can-Am was nice and smooth.
I'd rate the Sportsman's engine braking as very effective. However, I prefer the slight less engine braking that I got from the Can-Am.
Despite a small deficit in overall rideability, winning in transmission effectiveness, mid-range power, and dominating in top end were enough for the Outlander L to pull past the Sportsman in engine performance. As an extra test of engine performance, we hit Haspin Acres dirt drag strip, switching riders and lanes repeatedly. The Sportsman got the whole shot each and every time, thanks to its tremendous low-end horsepower and torque. By the end though, the Outlander's V-twin had the top-end power and speed to run down the Sportsman. The Sportsman regularly reached the 58 mph mark by the finish, while the Can-Am reached 62 mph on one occasion and was looking for more runway. The Outlander L500 was able to beat the Sportsman 570 on 2 out of 3 runs, so the Can-Am takes the win in the drag race competition. Shaft drive to all 4 wheels and the ability to operate in 2-wheel drive are where these machines' drivetrain similarities end. Both use 4-wheel drive systems that are a bit unconventional. The Sportsman has what Polaris refers to as all-wheel drive. To maintain light steering in all-wheel drive, when traction is abundant, the 570 provides drive to the rear wheels only. When the rear wheels begin to spin marginally faster than the front wheels engage, providing locked-in, true 4-wheel drive. When traction is restored to the rear wheels, the front wheels automatically disengage. The Outlander L DPS uses Can-Am's Visco-Lock QE front differential. The Visco-Lock system operates like a limited slip front differential, allowing for easier steering. If one tire begins spinning faster than the other, the differential automatically progressively locks in, providing equal power to both front wheels. When traction is restored, the Visco-Lock system progressively unlocks. Our test riders found it difficult to fault the Polaris all-wheel drive system. It works well nearly everywhere on the trail. However, they did find a couple instances where it left them wanting more traction.
The 4-wheel drive on the Polaris, for the most part I liked it. The issues that I do have with it is you have to really lose traction in order for it to kick in, so I didn't get that on the Can-Am.
The all-wheel drive system requires the rear wheels to spin before the front engages.
The Polaris won't engage the front wheels until it does break traction. In the Can-Am, it's always engaged.
Polaris all-wheel drive system works well, but its occasionally unpredictable engagement also had an impact on its effectiveness, forcing it into second place in drivetrain performance. In areas where Polaris all-wheel drive system stumbled, Can-Am's Visco-Lock QE seemed to shine, so it was unanimously preferred by all of our test riders.
In 4-wheel drive, engagement, and effectiveness, I found the Can-Am superior, clearly. Because in corners, especially when hauling a trailer, the engagement on the Can-Am is there, pulling you around in the corner.
I really like the 4-wheel drive on the Can-Am. When it kicked in, I really didn't feel it kick in, and got me out of some sticky situations fairly easily without me even knowing that it was engaged.
I found the Can-Am's 4-wheel drive system to be very predictable. It offered instant engagement and it worked well on any terrain.
Our riders felt the Visco-Lock QE system was pretty undetectable, locking in, providing extra traction without distraction. It also benefited from some level of constant drive to the front wheels. The Outlander scored higher in 4-wheel drive engagement and effectiveness, giving the Can-Am the win in drivetrain performance. Both the Sportsman and Outlander use steel chassis. The Outlander features Can-Am's G2 chassis, originally released in 2012. The G2 frame incorporates different manufacturing processes and an updated geometry for improved handling, rigidity, and increased strength. The Sportsman's frame is based on its original design, which dates back to its release in 1996, although it benefits from 19 years of refinement and was most recently updated in 2014 to house the ProStar engine. The Outlander features dual A-arm front suspension with 9 inches of travel, while the Polaris utilizes McPherson struts with 8.2 inches of travel. Out back, the Outlander features Can-Am sway bar equipped torsional trailing independent suspension, featuring 8.8 inches of travel. Polaris sway bar equipped dual A-arm rear suspension has slightly longer legs with 9.5 inches of travel. The Can-Am features 5-way preload adjustable shocks at all 4 corners. Only the rear shocks on the Polaris feature 5-way preload adjustable shocks. The front struts are non-adjustable. With its rear shocks in their softest setting, the Sportsman suspension was firm enough for all the work and play we threw at it. Its suspension worked well overall, and rider ratings were a mixed bag, with Damon rating the Sportsman the higher of the two machines.
You know, we spent a lot of time tuning the suspension on the Can-Am, and the Polaris, we really didn't have to touch it. Right out of the box, it didn't beat us up on the whoops, it didn't beat us up on the trails, it didn't beat us up on the rocks, and it just did great.
The Polaris is plush over small bumps. I never felt it bottom off the jumps or G-outs. It tracks straight through uneven bumps, and the only time I felt it falter was when I was pushing really hard through the whoops and I felt the rear deflect. Although Polaris lacks adjustability on its front shocks, I didn't feel like it needed any. It worked great right out of the box.
The Polaris on uneven bumps would float them a lot more easily than the Can-Am. Suspension tunability on the Polaris is, well, it's half what it could be because the front isn't adjustable.
Despite scoring higher in large and uneven bumps, and their good all-around performance, the lack of adjustment up front and usable adjustment out back were enough to keep the 570 from taking the win in suspension. Rated higher by both Rob and Joe, the Can-Am suspension works well over a wide variety of terrain and uses. However, it was its adjustability that brought home the win in suspension.
When we first got the Can-Am, we noticed that it was really bouncy in the bumps, the whoops, so we decided to take some time, tuned it, retuned it, and that time really allowed us to get the bike to track better in all of the scenarios.
On small bumps, whether it's low speed or high speed, the Can-Am is the plusher of the two bikes. In uneven bumps, it tends to wander more than the Polaris, and on big hits, whether the suspension is set on fully soft or fully stiff, it tends to use its full travel more often than the Polaris.
The Can-Am takes the win in small bumps and tunability. However, if tunability hadn't been a factor, the Polaris would have won the category. The Can-Am is plush, but can be firmed up enough. The Polaris is firmer, but can't be softened up to make it as plush as the Can-Am. While it's not extremely clear-cut, the adjustability of the Can-Am shocks brought home the win in suspension performance. Chassis geometry, suspension performance, dimensions, and other factors all play a role in handling. Of the two machines, the Polaris is the widest at 48 inches, compared to 46 for the Can-Am. The Sportsman has a 50.5-inch wheelbase, compared to 51 inches for the Outlander. The Polaris has a 33.75-inch seat height, compared to 33.8 inches for the Can-Am. The Sportsman has 11 inches of ground clearance, compared to 10.5 inches for the Outlander. Both machines benefit from electronic power steering, with Can-Ams offering 3 different modes of selectable assistance. Both machines use 25/812 front and 25/1012 rear Carlisle tires. The Polaris uses Carlisle 489s mounted on steel wheels, while Can-Am uses Trail Wolves mounted on cast aluminum wheels. Polaris is claiming a dry weight of 713 pounds, very close to the claimed 703 pounds of the Can-Am. The Outlander L handles well, but it likes to keep the rider involved and on his toes.
The steering precision on the Can-Am is extremely accurate and requires very little handlebar input.
I really like the power steering on the Can-Am. The 3 modes allowed me to, basically pick what mode I wanted for the terrain that, I was going to be riding in at that time.
With its 3 different settings, does well, I find, in most situations on low. You do not want it on high at high speed because it will get twitchy.
The Can-Am corners predictably, but it has a little more body roll than the Polaris, so it requires more body English to corner aggressively.
Cornering on the Can-Am, it was a little shaky for me. A lot of, getting up on 2 wheels a lot. High speed stability on the Can-Am, a little twitchy in the front end.
The Can-Am is a bit twitchy at high speeds. You can minimize this by putting the power steering on the minimum setting, but you just can't be as relaxed as you are on the Polaris.
Weight balance, I noticed that when I went into jumps, that it seemed a little nose heavy and I had to fight it a little bit more.
The Can-Am is lighter than the Polaris, but it feels even lighter than it is.
Seemed that I framed out quite a few times on the Can-Am where I didn't on the Polaris.
Out on the trail, we never high-centered the Can-Am, but we did find ourselves running out of ground clearance more often than on the Polaris.
The Can-Am scores higher for power steering effectiveness and weight feeling and balance, but falling behind in stability and ground clearance kept it from outhandling the Polaris. With rock-solid stability and the ability to clear most anything in our path, the Sportsman scored higher among all our test riders when it came to handling.
Polaris cornering, I personally love this bike. Again, it's like this thing is on rails. I get into a turn and I know that the bike is going to go where I want it to go.
The Sportsman steers accurately and has a tighter turning radius than the Can-Am, which helps you in tight spaces. However, the Sportsman requires you to turn the handlebars more to turn the same amount of degrees as the Can-Am, which makes you work the handlebars more. The power steering on the Polaris works well.
You can end up in areas where, a little more technical riding areas such as rock crawling, things like that, where you have to work a little harder than you do on the Can-Am. In corners, I really feel that the Polaris is head over heels better. The width of the bike makes you feel a lot more comfortable.
In cornering stability, the Polaris has a couple of advantages over the Can-Am. One, it's wider. Two, the suspension does not allow for as much body roll. I also feel that Polaris has the advantage in high-speed stability.
At high speed, it was a lot less twitchy. Went a straight line, it was smooth, whether I was on, rough terrain or a smooth surface. It is a heavier bike. I feel that the weight is distributed a whole lot better. The ground clearance on the Polaris, by far is better as far as I'm concerned.
Anytime ground clearance was an issue, the Polaris always had the advantage.
Scoring significantly higher in cornering and high-speed stability undoubtedly helped the 570 take the win in steering precision. With more ground clearance and a respectable performance in power steering and weight balance, the Sportsman has the Outlander handled. These machines are stopped by dual front and single rear hydraulic disc brakes. Both feature handlebar mounted levers which activate both the front and rear brakes at the same time, and each has a brake pedal which operates the rear brake independently. Steel braided brake lines come standard on both machines. The Can-Am uses dual piston calipers, while the Polaris uses single piston calipers. The Sportsman's brakes require more pressure to bring it to a halt. With a braking bias toward the rear end, it keeps the Sportsman from making the most of its front brakes under heavy braking.
Polaris's single lever braking offers good power and decent feel, but I found that it's a little more biased to the rear, and this can be a problem.
The Sportsman, I found that sitting on hills, pointing down, I had to put a little more effort into the brake lever to keep the bike stopped.
The brakes on the Polaris, while they did stop me, they just didn't have the feel and the responsiveness of the brakes of the Can-Am.
The Sportsman's brakes are good and effective, but clearly not the best in this shootout. When it came to braking performance, the Can-Am was a unanimous and clear-cut favorite among our test riders.
I preferred the brakes on the Can-Am over the Polaris, strictly because they were so responsive. When I touched the brake, it stopped the machine, and it stopped it quickly.
I felt the Can-Am's brakes offered a bit more power and a lot better feel. With the handlebar mounted lever having more bias to the front, I can stop faster without locking up the back brakes like I do on the Polaris.
With more power, better feel, and better braking bias, the Can-Am's brakes were rated higher at both ends, making it the winner in braking performance. Operating off-road, your ATV's finish takes a real beating. Here's a tip that we'll use to restore our test unit's finish after the shootout.
Maxima SC1, also known as New Bike in a Can, is a product we have fallen in love with over the past couple of years. The high gloss clear coat is formulated for use on plastic, painted surfaces, and fiberglass. We applied it to both machines prior to our shootout to help prevent mud buildup and speed the cleanup process. When cleanup is complete, we'll reapply SC1 to restore factory shine and color to plastic. It also works great to shine up painted or powder coated wheels. We even use it as a tire shine. Unlike some automotive sprays, SC1 dries, leaving a long-lasting luster, and it smells great. It's truly the closest thing we found to a new bike in a can. For more information on SC1 or Maxima's full line of products for maintenance and cleanup, visit MaximaUSA.com or pay a visit to your local power sports dealer.
While Polaris has worked hard to keep the Sportsman 500, now 570, modern, its dated ergonomics and controls really stand out.
While the Polaris isn't uncomfortable, their ergonomics feel dated. The handlebars are high, the throttle is sometimes a little hard to reach, and the seat is a little wider and firmer than the Can-Am.
The ergonomics of the Polaris, they're comfortable. They're just not as comfortable as, the Can-Am, for example. The handlebars are a little high. The shifter, it's kind of intrusive on your leg.
The Polaris is a one-lunger, one big piston thumping. A lot of power, but you do feel it more throughout the whole bike.
With its dated ergonomics and just a bit more vibration than the Can-Am, the Polaris scored second in fit and finish. Preferred by all of our test riders, the Can-Am clearly took top honors in fit and finish.
The big difference for me, between the two bikes was the ergonomics. I really felt that the Can-Am just had a lot more to offer as far as comfort. The seat is soft, it's very plush, probably the most comfortable seat I've ever sat on a sport utility.
The Can-Am has a very modern feel to it. It feels just like a sport quad. It has great handlebars, I love the thumb throttle, and it's got a super plush seat.
The Can-Am with a slightly smaller engine, but divided by 2 cylinders, much smoother engine, and you don't hear any vibrations or rattles on the whole bike.
Preferred by each rider in every category, the Can-Am takes a convincing win in fit and finish. With the ability to haul, tow, and pack items to bring along being so important in this segment, based on rider ratings, the machine that scores highest in utility performance receives an additional half point for winning Best Utility. For this test, we stuffed each machine's onboard storage with all of the cargo it could hold. We attached 300 pounds in sandbags, made suspension changes if necessary, and drove each machine. With their specifications listing them within 10 pounds of each other, we let the two ATVs take turns pulling each other on a trailer that weighed around 350 pounds. The Sportsman has a 6.5-gallon semi-dry storage box in the front that doubles as a front rack. Another good-sized box is located under the rear of the machine that can be accessed even when the racks are loaded down. The Can-Am has a 2.9-gallon semi-dry storage box located in the center of the rear rack. The Polaris has composite racks with exposed tubular steel sections for attaching tie-downs. Its combined rack capacity is rated at 270 pounds. The Can-Am features tubular steel racks. Its combined rack capacity is rated at 360 pounds. The Sportsman features a 1.25-inch hitch receiver and is rated to tow 1,225 pounds, while the Outlander has a built-in tongue and ball mount and is rated to tow 1,300 pounds. We look at these numbers more as guidelines than as rules, as we loaded the Polaris racks down with 30 pounds more than they were rated to hold. Joe felt that the Can-Am was the most work-capable of the two machines. The Can-Am's racks are easier to work with, and it handles a bit better when loaded, primarily thanks to its power steering. It has other strong points, but it's not enough to outscore the Sportsman.
I really like the racks on the Can-Am. Steel racks, really easy to load, really easy to strap down to. The Polaris just didn't have it with the composite racks.
Onboard storage was very limited compared to the Polaris, but tie-down straps could be hooked anywhere to the steel racks, and cargo did not slide around as much.
Storage on the Can-Am is very minimal. One small compartment on the rear rack, leaving you only the surfaces of the rack. but ease of loading is phenomenal. It's all tubular construction, which means everything on it is a holding point for a bungee.
With the machine loaded down, the engine didn't feel taxed. The suspension actually felt more plush than the Polaris, and with it squatted down, it didn't really feel more unstable.
While loaded with sandbags, the engine is a little more affected by the weight because you're moving at a slower speed anyway, which is down at your bottom RPMs, which is one of the vulnerabilities of the Can-Am.
We did have to do a little bit of adjustments on the suspension to get it where we wanted it to be. Engine performance under load on the Can-Am, I felt the power was there. I thought it was fine.
I preferred the Can-Am towing a trailer in most part because in four-wheel drive, turning corners or even zigzagging, you didn't get the push from the trailer because the front-end engagement in four-wheel drive just pulled you through these spots.
The Can-Am is a capable worker, winning in rackies of loading and handling while loaded, but it gives up some when it comes to towing performance and takes a beating in onboard storage. While it may be the best work option for some, overall, our riders rated it second. Rob and Damon both felt that the Polaris worked harder. It was competitive in every aspect of utility performance, shining in a couple of areas.
The Polaris offers a ton of onboard storage.
Storage and capacity on the Polaris wins.
The racks on the Polaris, they're not as easy to load as the Can-Am. Being that they're a composite material, things tend to slide around.
There are fewer areas to attach a bungee to, and those areas that does have are a little bit harder to get to.
We had to load it down with 300 pounds of sandbags. I myself weigh 225 pounds, and I really didn't even know that the bags were on there. There was really no body roll. It didn't seem to squat. The power was still there.
While loaded, the Sportsman's engine is unaffected.
Whether it's engine, suspension, or handling, the Sportsman is pretty unaffected by a heavy load. With its built-in receiver hitch and its low-end power, the Polaris Sportsman seemed to be built for towing, although I felt that it didn't seem to steer as accurately as the Can-Am.
Towing performance between the Polaris and the Can-Am, I give the Polaris an edge in this. The Polaris, for me, it had the power where you needed it. We didn't have to adjust anything on it, and when you needed that power to pull or to push, it was there.
The Polaris dominates in onboard storage. It takes the win in engine and suspension while loaded, and in towing performance, allowing it to surpass the Can-Am as best utility. Whether you buy your ATV for work or play, you're going to want to race your buddies through the woods sooner or later. Our Woods Moto is made up of a timed 3-lap moto from a rolling start. The sandy course features lots of banked rutted turns, with a few flat ones and one off-camber turn. The course is about 2/3 tight and twisty, with a few high-speed runs. The fastest is full of uneven bumps, leading up to a smooth jump just before the finish line. We know the Can-Am's motor is faster, but its mellow low-end power seemed to hold Joe and Damon back in the tight sections as they struggled to get the 500 in the meat of the power. Rob was able to rip through the tight sections with lots of body English, getting on the gas early and timing the mid-range hit to rip out of corners. When the lap times came in, the Can-Am finished second with an average moto time of 1 minute 50 seconds and 21/100ths of a second. With its power available right off idle, Joe and Damon were faster in the tight sections on the 570. The Sportsman's excellent stability let it carry more speed through turns, and Damon and Joe felt that they were faster through the uneven bumps on the Polaris. With an average moto time of 1 minute 46 seconds and 98/100ths of a second, the Sportsman 570 was 3.22 seconds faster than the Can-Am, making it the winner in the Woods Moto. For the Polaris, rider ratings yielded 7.69 points, in addition to a half point each for winning the Woods Moto and Best Utility special tests, giving the 2015 Polaris Sportsman 570 a total score of 8.69 points. although it had no effect on the outcome. When asked which machine they'd purchase, Damon said he'd go with the Polaris, while Rob and Joe said they'd purchase the Can-Am. As scores go, the Can-Am won 5 out of 7 categories, and was rated higher by all 3 of our riders at 8.34 points. Add in a half point each for winning an initial value and the drag race special tests, and the 2015 Can-Am Outlander L 500 wins this shootout with a total score of 9.34 points. In the end, we could forget about the final score, as both machines are great. We could simply go buy the one with the performance and features that fit us best and have no big regrets. Of course, if we didn't purchase an extended warranty for the Polaris and it suffered a major mechanical failure after 6 months, we'd have some regrets then. In scoring, the Can-Am won by 0.6 of a point, but we think it's its standard 5-year warranty that clearly makes the Can-Am Outlander L 500 the king of value in 4x4 ATVs. ATVOnDemand.com's 2015 King of Value 4x4 ATV Shootout has been brought to you by Maxima Racing Oils. Check out their full line of high-performance lubricants and care products at MaximaUSA.com. Want more in-depth information on both of these ATVs? Make sure to check out their individual reviews on ATVOnDemand.com.